Hey guys, what's going on? How's it going? Oh my goodness, we got more thumbs up than we have people here. And of course, I'm fashionably late by 5 minutes. That's always the goal here. I think I wrote 4 o'clock on the thing, but at 4:07 was when I set the timer for. And I'm looking for a little something that I know that my wife told me she put somewhere, and yeah, of course, I don't remember where that was. You should always listen to your wife. That's the moral of the story. How is everybody doing? It looks like we have people who've been here since yesterday hanging out. How are you guys doing? How are we feeling? What's the temperature like? What's up, George? Looks like George was the first, well, maybe not the first, but at least early in the chat. Let's see here. Let's get let's get a clear picture of what's going on here. We'll catch up on chat and then we'll be at the topic of the day. The topic at hand is going to be nano aquariums, or at least desk size aquariums. And we're going to cover a couple different kinds, as well as answering any of your general questions. All that I ask is that you just hit the at sign or hashtag sign and then do the secret history living in your aquarium, or probably even just part of that, the secret history. I think if you do at the secret history, like that much it'll show up still highlighted for me. If you remember already, then I get a little pendant alert next to your name that puts your name in another color and a little icon next to it. So that does catch my eye a little bit better. So that helps too if you do forget. At least most members I see pretty easily. And the other thing you can do is say Alex, and that's totally fine too. You know, just like, hey, Alex. I usually will see that, but if I don't answer your question for some reason and no one in if and no one else is in the stream that is answering your question, because we have some brilliant minds in here, people like Chevy Fish, people like Mridgel, people like Mary, hello all of you, Muppet, hey Chris John S, Craig, what's going on, mate? How's it going? Amy Lou, so good to see you, of course. Morgan, hello. Let's see here. Looks like Anita Dab's in here already. 4 years fish. We've already got $1 super chat. Ding 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 ding. You get a car. You get a car. You get a car, or not. But it's something. You guys get to hear me talk. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the super duper chat. Von Lurker, of course, the best name in the fish school. Jess, we got manes, tails, fins, and furs. I'm surprised she didn't wake me up. I'm surprised she didn't try to wake me up and see where I was when I was 1 minute past the start time that it said. What's up, Greg? Jamie Lee. Great people. I'm so glad everyone's here. We all feeling good. Yeah, when anyone types with the letter S, it's orange for you. Wow, S, maybe you need a different name. I'm surprised they let you have that name. It's so short. All right, guys. Well, looks like I'm almost down to the bottom of where you guys are. I'm joining you at the bottom of the barrel. No offense, guys. But I do have a mission that I was hoping to complete, which is figuring out where my wife said she put the tripod. She used it for something or other at work to take pictures, and I don't know where she said it afterwards. So let me look for that real quick. If you guys have any questions to fire up, feel free to toss them out there if you guys are having any struggles, troubles, or comments on the state of the aquaria world. And then the other thing is, today I kind of wanted to break up what we talk about into a couple main chunks, and the main chunkity oh, here it is, probably right where she told me she put it, right next to everything else that I use for a stream, next to the microphones, next to the gimbal, all that stuff. Okay. All right, now I can stop pacing and stop driving everyone crazy. Hey, we got another super chat coming in, a little super sticker. Looks like a face that may have gotten punched. It's got an eye. It's like this. Oh, it's a wink. I get it. Okay. Thank you so much, Mary. Chubbs, what's going on? Great stream the other night with your buddy Jess and Chubbs on the down on was it down on Bayou? I always say it wrong, but down on the Bayou, down by the Bayou, down at the Bayou. But great. They had a friend who was a biologist, and he knew a bunch about snakes and stuff. So that was kind of a cool little chat. The other night, Monday nights at well, I guess it'd be 7 o'clock our time here in L.A., Seattle, West Coast time, and East Coast 10 o'clock. Oh, crocodile. One other thing that I really wanted your guys' help with is getting rid of top chat. That button needs to go. It drives me nuts. Why does it even exist? I don't get it. Yeah. And Kev was there, Fugging Fish, Von Lurker, yes, Down on the Bayou. Okay, there we go. That's it. And that's Jess's channel is Mains, Tails, Fur, and Fins, by the way, and it kicks off on her channel. Also, I'm hoping if I have time this week and money set aside after I have to take care of a couple things, I'm hoping to go visit Jason one more time. He is launching his website at Redfish Bluefish, going on. When is he launching it? Thursday, I think. Thursday morning at 8 a.m. West Coast time. So that's another whole thing. There's a couple more pictures that maybe I was hoping to knock out. And so if I can get out there, I really want to get a pair of those iron topaz guppies. And I know a lot of other people do too. So yeah. One person knows who you are. That we talked about it already. Morgan, hello everyone. You can only stay a short while. I have babies to bathe and kiddos to put in bed. Just wanted to watch a few minutes before I have to get too busy. Well, welcome. Welcome back, my friend, to the show that never ends. Step inside, step inside. Okay, Atkins, Ian, what's up? Alec, the nice. Bro, I want his fish. Yeah, I want his fish too. It is cool though being his friend, being able to like before he ordered them, we were totally nerding out over the list of what he can get from Europe from all these different sources. So we have all these different price sheets and stuff, and we're like Googling like, what's that one? I've never heard of that one. And it's like, oh, it gets 8 feet long. Okay, let's not get that one. Okay, oh, what's that one? Oh, wholesale price is $190. Never mind, let's not get that one. So it was just, it's crazy what's out there if you really want to look for it. Carolyn, hello, welcome. So yeah. Well, today we're going to be chatting. I guess we can jump right on in, and if anything comes up, it'll come up. But we will be chatting about itty bitty witty tanks. So let's take a look at one itty bitty witty tank that I have. The smallest tank I've ever had in which a life form has remained viable, and that I felt like I could do in good conscience, which is this little tank here, this little glass tank. Now, we'll talk about this in more depth when we talk about setup, but this itty bitty witty tank, look at how teeny it is. It doesn't even hold, I don't know, it holds a few cups of water. But who do we have in there? We have baby rice fish in there. And you can see its pearl scales. They look like ick or something. They're not. They're just, that's its little iridophores shining. See, when it moves through different light, it changes color. But it's, there's a few babies in there. That was not intentional. That was not intentional that is in there. But this was just going to be a wabikusa, and it's too small. So this is kind of a joke, guys. You don't want to keep a fish in here for its life. But the fact that there are fry that hatched in here, and I didn't know they were in there, and nothing has come and gone into this tank since maybe May. So the fact that the fry hatched in there, it was sometime, maybe early June, and they've been in there since, and their growth was stunted. But I took most of the babies out. There's still two in there that I left in there, and they're living. I've never fed the tank. I just wanted to kind of see what would happen. I know maybe that's a mean experiment, but they're doing fine, and I've heard that many times that they can live in a very teeny spot. They can live in little jars while they're babies and things. And so I was waiting for it to grow, but it just hasn't really grown. And come to think of it, neither have the other Medaka siblings it had. They're all really teeny still. So I don't know if something about being born in such a small body of water was an issue. But regardless, what I wanted to show you about this is that this much of the tank, so a full 3 to 4 inches, is substrate. And that's how I'm getting away with it, with no filter, no water changes. The plant life in it is literally how I'm able to turn on the water, no dechlorinator, and I just add a little water to it. Now, this is not what you would typically do ever with a small little tank, but I just wanted to show you the extreme version of what is theoretically possible. Now, the reason this works is this has been planted for over a year. The water is very, very incorporated. I mean, the plants and the water and everything are very, very incorporated with one another. There are, this is Rotala Super Red, or Ludwigia Super Red. It's oddly kind of dry because it's moved so far away from the tank. And then we've got Hydrocaudal up here. We've got mini Rotala Red Butterfly here. And then we've got Ludwigia repens Super Red, not Glandulosus Super Red. And then the other plant here, over here hanging out, is Ovalis. So, and then what's really in here, we've got some stargrass and some moss. And then the base of this is Hydrocaudal verticulatus right here, and you can see another one growing here. It's kind of cool, the roots, the way they grew. But basically, this tank is small. The fish species that are in it don't need hardly anything, and they're eating algae and little buggers that are from, because the water I started this from is from my tanks outside when they had mosquitoes and algae and scuds and seed shrimp and all sorts of microscopic life form. And then it stayed in the windowsill. Has no heater, so it gets down to maybe 60 degrees at night. And then it's gotten as hot as 90 degrees in the summer on hot days in this room. So this is kind of like the most extreme you could do. Now, granted, I'm going to say that I've got 2 fry left in here, a shrimp and some snails. So I wouldn't do this to fish, like as a recommendation. I'm just showing you that if you have the deep substrate, so we've got nitrification going on up on the top with the oxygenated live bacteria. We've got it going on the plants. Then the plants are oxygenating the water, and so is the algae. And then we've also got the roots reaching down, and they oxygenate pockets of the deep substrate. But what's going on deeper down in there is when the fish go to the bathroom and whatnot. What's really happening here is, one, it's gotten cold and darker than it was earlier since this thing has begun. And so the plants are no longer getting enough light, and they're actually, they're paying for it with their life right now. So I'll have to do something with this, or put it next to a light. So that's part of the trouble. But this is a great way to practice if you don't have a fish tank yet, and you want if you don't have a fish tank yet and you want something. Why not practice setting up a layered substrate? So in here, I've got silt that's, it's hard to see because it's all kind of brown and the same color. But then down in here, there's a layer of gravel, a layer of EcoComplete, a layer of ADA Amazonia, another layer of sand, another layer of gravel. So what it is it's that deep bed substrate, the Wallstead method, that allows it to happen. The part that's mean about this tank is not the the way I'm treating it with water, because we're just topping off little bits at a time. You could easily have this on a desk if you had a lamp at your work that was on a timer, or lights that come on at a time, UV lights over, or fluorescent lights, I should say, over your workspace or whatever. Or if you're in a dorm or something, you could put it in a windowsill. Obviously, different parts of the country are going to be different. Now, in the Northwest, it does get cold here. I mean, today it's 40 some degrees. So in this window area, it does have issues. But the fish that I would recommend for this tank, and there are like 2 or 3 fish that I would actually say go ahead and do, other than shrimp and or a few little snails, would be, I would say that it's okay to do at least killifish in here. They may jump out with the rim like that. I would say at least killifish, they only get half an inch long. And also I would say that, probably it wouldn't at all be a problem. In fact, it would probably live a fulfilled life because they hang out in an area smaller than this anyways, would be the the smaller Elosoma species, which are the pygmy sunfish from southern United States. I've had Elosoma gilberti live in here as fry also. So I've used this as a little fry vessel. You might remember I had another container here. We'll go downstairs and look at it real quick. And then we're going to talk about like actual aquariums. But the first subject I wanted to touch on was essentially these vanity aquariums, or these aquariums for the sake of design and looking cute, right? So these both, I would say, when they were planted up correctly, these both fell into that same category. Now, this is one that I really liked in that you can clip a little lamp onto the side. I got this bowl at a secondhand store for $1 or $2, I think. And the cool thing about this tank or bowl, I think it holds around 1.5 gallons of water with the substrate. So it's a little deceiving. It may look smaller than that, but it holds more than that. Whereas this actually holds almost 3 gallons, this one. And we'll talk about this one after that one. But, oh, let me turn it. Oh, I'm splashing water. Let me turn it so we can actually see the cute factor, right? Which is that it is the Earth on a globe. The globe of the Earth, I should say. And over here, we've got this guy. And what's cool about this vase or bowl, and what I would recommend, if you really want a low maintenance tank, and I'm talking, you don't have to do anything to it. You don't want, I don't want to scrub the sides. I don't want to deal with algae. I don't want to even feed my fish hardly. You have options. Bettas are not your option. Goldfish, not your option. Those two are terrible choices for something like that. But this tank, get a cold water native species. Another species you could probably do is a Battis. But what you're going to need to do is go to a local pond if you don't have an aquarium set up in your house already. You're going to need to go to a local pond or something, and you're going to want to get live water. You're going to want, or Opa Ule shrimp too. You could easily do that. Opa Ule shrimp, because you kind of need to mix the water to a certain pH and everything with volcano shrimp from Hawaii, I do kind of recommend covering it, especially if you're at a workplace or at school, just because someone would be tempted to either overfeed or throw junk in there, that kind of thing. Water Flora, how's it going? Welcome, come on into the party. It's a real lame party, but I mean, we're here, so maybe you can kick it off for us. That's one size option that I've kind of. This is one of my favorites. Right now in here we've got 5 Elosomas. Let's see if we can find them even. And they're just hanging out in moss. And you may think that's mean. A lot of people think that every fish needs space to do things. Honestly, there are quite a few little teeny fish that one, they're cold water fish, or at least they can withstand water down to 40 degrees, you know, and they can do, you know, whatever whatever you ask of them. They're just little ambush predators that eat microscopic food. So as long as you either have enough light that you're providing algae and you know that they eat algae, because in this instance, these guys will eat algae a little bit, but they actually like the microscopic little rotifers and planaria and things like that. And so I don't know if you guys can see them at all. They're really hard to see with the glare. Sorry, guys. And I don't know what I can do about the glare because it's all artificial light causing it. Let's see if we can get one to swim by. But these are the little Elosoma gilberti. When they are spawning, they color up this beautiful blue color, and they do a little shaky dance and everything. And each male needs its own territory of about, I don't know, 6 to 10 square inches of planted area. Beyond that, though, they're very, very low maintenance. They really don't need much, and they don't want much. They live in one little area. Here we go. There he is. She is. So in here right now, I have 3 females and a male. This is one of the females. And especially in the lower temperatures, since these are from Florida, in the lower temperature ranges, so anything below 60 if this room gets cooler, they're going to just chill in here and their metabolism will slow down. And especially if they know that their food resources are limited, they just grow real low and slow. They're just, you know, kind of simmering in a stew. But you can do all sorts of really cool aquascapes in there, which is great, you know. Now, the other thing, the next size up, and the size that really, when these are really not for beginners, as much as they seem like, oh, that's so great, it'd be so easy to set it and forget it. I could put a scarlet batis, male and female, in there, and then just never look at them again. Maybe sprinkle in some live baby brine shrimp, or, you know, something along those lines every you know, 5th day. They would live probably for most people, but I like that people understand what's going on with the substrate, what's going on, why we don't need a filter, you know, these things, and why we need so many plants that you're like, I can't really see the fish. Those things are all good to understand before you jump into a project like this. So the next size bowl, and this kind of includes, you know, those aquariums. You might see them. They're like orbs that you can hang. They're like balls that float there. You can see here, this one has been up and going for 2 years now, probably. And there's a little algae on the side. Finally, I just am seeing it. Like, I had to turn it to see it because that's the side that faces the window. And I did dislodge a bunch of the decor in here, but what's going on in here is you can see all the Malawa shrimp. Malawa neocaridina shrimp can live, once you get the water acclimated. All I've done is added some of this Aquion. This is actually not half bad from what I can tell. Just some shrimp essentials. It gets, for me, my water has pretty much nothing in it, and it gets the KH and GH right about where I need it. For the fish that are in here, they're also a form of rice fish. And these little fish are known as Medaka rice fish. But these are the Malaysian variety. So you're seeing the shrimp in there. Let's get, here's another shrimp. There's the fishy, one of them. We've got a male and a female in here. And yes, they do spawn in here. Rice fish are one of the very few fish that are a hot or cold water fish. They like, you know, 65 to 75 is their chill zone. And these ones actually like around 70 degrees generally. They'll go down to 60, but these are the Malaysian blue daisies rice fish. And they will still spawn in a tank this small. So you could have a tank in your office or at your dorm or whatever, and you could plant it up all nicely and it would still spawn. What I want you to notice, though, is that I bought this tank with it being a 3-gallon tank. It's actually a 4-gallon tank, And so maybe it's 2.5 gallons, I guess, of water. But yet again, the substrate, it's all the way to my first, or from my finger to my knuckle. And it's gotten kicked up a bit, but you can kind of see we did a sand cap, and silt has settled over the years. And then we've got rocks of medium kind of gravel size. Then we've got bigger rocks, and we've got all kind of mixed in there too. We've got Amazonia soil. And then below that, we've got Fluval stratum, so that has more minerals and things in it. And then below that, there's just silt and sand again. So down here, you can get cyanobacteria, you can get those green growths that a lot of people worry about. You get little pockets that bubble. But what that is, when you've got this many plants in here, all that this tank really needs, its main need, is light. Its main necessity for survival is light. And the shrimp, they're secondary. They'll live off of algae in here. If there's something in here to start the algae, so plants, even just plants, say you want plants from a big tank in another aquarium, you can literally take those plants and just move them right over, and they're going to have the essentials that you need for algae and little bacteria. So up there, you see that fish? That's a blue daisy right there. That's a blue daisy that was born to the parent blue daisies that are in that little bowl. So all these blue daisies in here, they're from that bowl. And I just scoop them out when they're ready. There's more over back there. And yeah, so they do really well. I've experimented with quite a few species, and what I like to do before I put a species in a tank that's this small, here's another smaller tank option. This is a 7.5 gallon, and it's really more down to a 5 gallon or even less with the substrate layering yet again. And we can go over why we layer the substrate, but I feel like we've covered that quite a bit in that you guys have heard from me, the top layer, you can either cap it, but you can also do, you can leave an aqua soil layer, and you see how this is rounded? All these little round areas are surface area. As long as you have some flow, and in the case of this tank, that's why I didn't cap it, there's a flow of water coming out here, and it swirls around even if it's slow, and that's oxygenated, and that has nitrifying bacteria on every surface in this tank. You know, on the wood, there's nitrifying bacteria. There's algae, which makes, you know, short work of a lot of things like CO2, like nitrites, like carbon. So you kind of have to be okay with a little bit of, what's the word? With a little bit of the problem children for a lot of bigger aquariums. You need to be okay with the fact that you may get some algae, you may get some blooms of cyanobacteria in these smaller tanks, but the key is really to let them settle for a long time before you put fish in. That's going to be your best bet. Now, beyond that, even my I guess the biggest piece of advice I would give is you set it up right with a layered substrate. You get it in, and if you have the right fish, you don't need to do that much. But I am a big proponent of plants, and you can see here, this is one of my lighter planted tanks, and there's still a lot of plants. If you're curious about lighting options, anything like, here's a silver halide light that's actually for makeup artistry that my mom had, and she was going to toss it, so I took it, but it eats up energy really fast. The little bulb in it has lasted forever, but yeah. But here we've just got this one I got at Petco, and it was, I think this is the planted, the planted tank Aqueon light, and it's $49.99 normally. On sale, you'll see it for $39.99 sometimes, I guess, and not on sale, I've seen it as much as $60. you can see what it does. I mean, it's right in the window here, and the blinds are drawn most of the time. But this does show you that you're not going to get incredible growth. You're not going to get incredible colors, but you do still have a range of options. And things like Crips and Ludwigia Super Reds or Alternanthera renickii. There's some plants with a little bit of color you can have. Now, the other thing that you need to have in an aquarium this size is major self-control about feeding. So that's the number one thing that people do that crashes, kills, and destroys their nano tank on a desk. People come by and they say, "Can I feed your betta? Can I feed your rice fish? Whatever." And you have to be able to tell them no. Don't even have food nearby. I almost wanted to make a food that was just made out of like carbon and starch, and you just throw it in the water, and your friends think it's food, and it just disappears. Seriously, it drives me nuts. Anthony's fish friend. Sorry, guys, I've neglected chat. I've abandoned my family. Bob Kaler. Hello. John Larson. Hello. Peplin Creek. Dennis Ho. Yo. Let's see here. I think I missed a comment. I could post a picture. They're playing with the. Oh, I'm behind. Let's see here. So again, if you need, yeah, placebo food, exactly, not Nola Jane fish. That's exactly it. Later, Mridgel. So simple fish keeping. Congratulations, I see is in order. Congratulations. So in any case, yeah, my opinion of these small tanks is it's really about picking out the right fish after you've set up your aquarium. Because anything biological when you're feeding these guys that you put in the tank is going to break down into ammonia. So you either need filtration in the form of the very slow acting filtration that occurs via plants and the bottom here. So you're getting filtration at the top, you're getting filtration in a layer where there's no oxygen. But you need that layer with no oxygen. Here Fishy says, I am offering a deal on placebo food. Only $19.95 for the first month or 6. This is basically Paris Raccoon Rats. Hello, welcome. This is it's actually a 7.2 technically, I think. It's an ADA tank, an older model. So it's liters rather than gallons, but it is a low rim, and with the substrate and everything, it works out to about 5 gallons of water in here. So coming down even lower, here's more of our traditional option. So I just kind of want to show these, and then we'll talk about some of the pros and cons of them too. But here's another traditional option. This here is a 2.5 gallon tank. This is set up, of course, there's a light over 3. You can easily just get a little clip light. Anything that you're growing in here, you really don't need a major powerhouse of a light. You really don't. You know, these setups are absolutely perfect for shrimp. So here we've got some buried Jade Shrimp, for instance. These are Neocaridina in here. And what I use these tanks for is I actually use these tanks to raise fry. And I see a couple fry. Let's see if I can get them in my turkey baster. Let's see if I got them. Did I get them? They're very teeny right now. They're larval stage fry in here right now. One's hugging the bottom and kind of rolling and twitching there. Let's see if can I turn it and get him to show. Oh no, they're kind of falling out the end. Sorry guys. Well, maybe I'll show you guys when they get a little bigger, or maybe if we hold still, they'll come by again. But basically, in here, I just use these tanks as they're shrimp tanks, and the shrimp can live their full life in here, be happy, healthy, wealthy, and wise, and do their thing. The snails also. The snails, help do a couple things when you have a small tank like this. The snails are going to tell you how your KH and GH are. So whether you have enough calcium and carbon in your tank. If they have clear white soft shells that smush easily, and really the only way to know if they smush easily is by pushing on them, so that's a little mean. Jess, take it easy. Oh, you're going to be on Petzotic's channel. All right, sorry. Take care. So, and break a leg on the channel. So the thing about these tanks is I really like this option. You can use a very small little pump like this that's pretty quiet on your desk. And, you know, you can also even hatch brine shrimp in something this size. It's not the most stylized tank, obviously. It's just a little rectangle. It's just a little 2.5 gallon. But all you need is a little bit of dechlorinator, a little bit of food, and once you have your tank set up, you can kind of have, if it's shrimp and a couple microfish, nanofish, you're good to go. These ones don't even have heaters. Now that's going to depend on how warm your office or your, you know, your den or bedroom or whatever it is, how warm that is. And you need to, you know, act accordingly. But right here, you can see you don't want to be gravel vacuuming aquariums like this. So one option is these natural tanks like I'm showing you. There's also another direction that you could go in that's kind of a 180 from this, and it's the more traditional goldfish bowl thinking. And that is, you could put plastic plants in there, you could put glass beads in there at the bottom. But what you're going to need to do is dechlorinate the water and change out like 50% of the water every day. And if there's any algae building up on the sides, you're going to need to wipe it off. So if you do that, then you can keep whatever fish psychologically and physically you feel is fair to put in there. I would not put a betta in something that small unless it's just growing out as like fry or something. But fish like rice fish, they, especially these domestic lines, they have this 5 gallon to swim in, yet 90% of the time they're right there, just kind of hovering in the water and doing their thing. Same with elastomas, same with scarlet batis, same with erythromicrons. Granted, would they have a more active, thriving life if you put them in a 50 gallon or something? Yes, they will, and they'll probably breed more. But there are options, you know, there are fish that are okay with that. I wouldn't keep something hyper like a guppy in there. Those things have quicker metabolisms. A quicker metabolism means that it's going to poop more and that you're going to have more problems with swings. And when you come to this size of a tank, the name of the game is mitigating water changes. Swings in water, that is. So that's why I said the other route you can go, other than planting a tank, planting the bejeebus out of it, that's one way to do it, and that's how I like to do it, because plants and substrate, both chemically in their properties, keep things more stabilized as an ecosystem. They provide oxygen to the water. They respirate, which actually moves the water. Even if we don't perceive it moving around, it actually does move it around. And it's a great habitat. It's stimuli for the fish. But moreover, mosses, even just like take a piece of lettuce that's, 2 inches by an inch across, a little strip of lettuce, an inch by 2 inches, and you put that in your tank for 3 or 4 days, pull it out when it gets all soggy. But that's going to make all sorts of little cloudy water, little bugs that your fish are going to eat. And that's infusoria. That's the kind of stuff that really young fish are going to eat. You can also buy things like micro pearls, golden pearls, which are food designed from crushed krill and maybe Malaysian shrimp or something like that, some sort of little high protein food. But here you can see this little Medaka rice fish, which hatched earlier this week, is just foraging, and she or he is eating whatever's on that roughage there. Behind him, what's going on in this tank right now, there's another batch of them in there that are a little older. They're maybe three weeks old now, and they've got the full stomach developed. You know, their eyes are nice and blue, and you can tell what's going on with them a bit more. But let's try to move. Let me try to get these guys to the front to show you the big fish in here, and the big fish, quote unquote, are going to be the jelly bean tetras. So you see them there. Oh no, is this one dead? No! It must have shocked it. Oh. Pretend I didn't show you this, guys. So, obviously, when you have a tank that's this small, the number one thing you're going to be doing is mitigating ammonia spikes. And right now, for me, that means literally get the fish out ASAP. There's no waiting. There's no delay. You got to get the fish out of a tank like this when they die. Where is it? But what I had put them in here for, and I think what happened was that the pH was too neutral for these guys. They'd been upstairs in a really acidic tank, and this tank's a 7.0. But what I was trying to do was walk them down in pH, and I killed them last night. No. Oh, and it's pretty warm. What's going on here? Yeah, that should be okay. The other guys look colorful and everything. I'm probably gonna move them back after this stream just because now I don't know what went wrong for sure, and I don't want them in trouble. And you can see how agitated that poor fish is. Let's see if I can catch him right now. We'll take him back upstairs to his original tank as we speak. But what I was doing was they were fattened up and ready to spawn. So, and then before we go upstairs, this is just another shrimp setup. No fish in here, just shrimp for now. There are eggs in here on the mosses, and that's what's going on here. But that's why there's just sand as a substrate. No layering or anything. Shrimp, you don't need that layered substrate. You're not taking care of. You're not worrying about that whole ecosystem like you would. And I've got this little jelly bean tetra that wasn't doing so hot in a little net, but the net holds water, so we're okay for 1 sec. Well, actually, let's put it in a jar. Let's get some water in the jar. All right. Happy? You look happier already. Okay. So, the other thing that you can think of doing for these smaller tanks, any of these nano fish work well. You know, you've got the rice fish that work well. Any of the nano Rasboras do, but you need a heater in there. Tetras you could put in there, but just to show you the size, these have long fins, obviously, so they're a fancy, unusual strain. But there's nothing unusual about the size these get to, and when you look at it, a neon tetra actually gets, you know, 1.5 inches long. It gets larger than you might expect. So I don't recommend neon tetras. Like, some people think that that's kind of your quintessential small fish. I disagree, honestly. And actually, we've got some rainbow fish fry up there in this tank too. A lot of times they eat their fry. But these are Pseudomagil luminatus. Again, these look like small fish. Terrible choice for a small tank. You need at least 20 gallons for them. I mean, you could do a 10 for spawning, but they need room to run. They're jumpers. They get stressed. Oh, right, the light is overheating in this tank. I'm just having problems today. Gosh, guys. Another option, if you're willing to go to a 10-gallon instead of a 5, is you could do a one-species tank like a puffer colony, or like these small apistos that are going to pair off like cribs, or, you know, or like angelfish do. This is a 10-gallon tank here, and I've got these Apistos, and they're super happy hunting shrimp. See how bad he is at it? But it keeps him busy, you know? If he doesn't try, gosh darn it. And I've got endlers in here that are my high acidity, or I should say, sorry guys, high pH, low acidity. Did that make sense? That didn't make sense. That's what they usually are. These are my guppies that can take acidity. That's what I mean. They have a high tolerance for low pH, which is high acidity. Sorry, guys. It's easy to switch those words around. But something else I want to show you real quick before we hop back upstairs is this tank here has not had a filter or a heater in it for, oh, I don't know, 6-9 months, something like that now. And the bigger the volume of water, the easier that is to pull off. The smaller volume of water, the more problems you're gonna run into. And like I said, if you find a tank you fall in love with, and it's one of those orb tanks. I had a question of the orb tanks today. Say it's one of those orb tanks that's a glass sphere. I would recommend shrimp or something for that, because you're going to need to change the water frequently in a tank like that. And, you know, you could put some sort of fish in there. Ember tetras stay smaller than other like neon blue tetras and things. And you do have the option of Corydoras habrosus for nano tanks too. Do we have any of that? I know I have them. Just don't know where they're at. Hey, pretty boy. Here we've got my crib. One of them. One of the albinos. And then the nano. Let's see here. I see one, but I don't know if I can get it on film for y'all. Weird. The one time they're not up front being little goofballs. But yeah, so really you want to, if you want to pick your container first, remember that you're doing that for aesthetic. You're picking a pot for a plant or something. You need to find the right plant for that pot. You can't just force a betta in there or a goldfish in there. You need to find a fish whose life habits are mellow, and its life habits are, it just chills. That's what it does. That's how it do. Because otherwise, I think it's cruel. And over in here, we've got the little Cory habrosus. Hopefully he'll come through in a sec. But they are small enough that I say that, you know, for a 3-gallon, you could probably put 3 to 5 in there. If you have plants, if you have the deep substrate. So there's ifs, you know. If you don't want to do all the planting and the substrates and things like that, you don't want live plants, then you have other options. You can do a betta, you can do rice fish, you can do a batis, but you are going to need to change that water all the time, very frequently, in order to prevent it from becoming full of ammonia, because it's never going to filter, really. Yes, it will grow. Of course, the habrosus just all were right here, and then they're just being little stinkers. They're all back in here now. But you're never going to get it to cycle up, and that's really the main problem, is it never fully becomes an ecosystem. It is a desk feature. It is a paperweight. It is a container. And you want to really, in my opinion, pick your fish before your tank. So a lot of people, way too many people, I feel like, get a tank and then they try to figure out what works for it. And it's not the fish they want. It doesn't do what they want it to do. And so that's why I recommend finding the fish that's right for you. And if the real answer is no, that's not a nano fish, don't treat it like that, then you should respect that about that fish, in my opinion. Granted, different people can keep, you know, fish are like different individuals, and sometimes you can get away with doing some wild and wacky things with your fish, that everyone else would say you can't do that, and then you do it fine for 10 years or whatever. Um, you know, but I wouldn't do that. So many people think that they're going to be relying on autosynclus or plecos. There's a pleco down in there. Or plecos, things like that, to be, there's a little baby pleco, to be cleaning the glass. In a nano tank, you could have an autosynclus, but you've always got to think about bioload. And if you have a horde of shrimps, they make hardly any ammonia, and they're going to clean. They're not going to clean the hard diatom algae, but what could you get that would do that? Well, a nearite snail, and it's not going to reproduce on you. So that's, I mean, and then you may think, okay, well, a nearite snail, if we hop over to another aquarium that's got nearite snails in it, you may think, okay, well, a nearite snail, I mean, they're kind of cool, they're pretty, but how big do they get? Well, some of them do get about the size of a silver dollar to a quarter, somewhere in there in size. Where are they? They're always moving in the tank. Here's some old shells of, from years ago of a few, but that's about full grown right there on those two shells. The live ones, of course, where are you right now? They're probably eating. Yeah. So I've got little zebra nearite snails also, and there are some ram's horn snails in this tank too. So what I recommend are the little nano zebra nearite snails are a great choice for that. If you're doing the deep substrate, then another great choice of snail is going to be your Malaysian trumpet snail, which is going to look like a little cone snail. Then that's a great choice for you, because that's going to turn over the substrate. That's going to rotate the substrate, aerate the substrate, and it does it slowly, as well as kind of just renewing pastures for your plants to graze in. I mean, soak up nutrients. If you use pond snails or ram's horn snails, like these ones on the glass, this tank has very low TDS. It's my angel tank and my crib tank. They don't need TDS. So these are so thin, they're so anemic, that they can be crushed by the mouth of any of these fish if they feel hungry. But the thing about snails is, snails are fine, and I think they're good. They do, these snails that we've talked about so far, as long as you're not talking about apple snails and mystery snails, those ones will eat food if you completely, or will eat plants if you completely neglect them. If you give them a little bit of food, or just plant material that is, hey, this is your food, this is your plant material, then they'll eat that. Obviously, they like dead plants, or I don't know what the right way to put that is. Already cut and prepared plants is what they want. They want that cell tissue to cease the growth, and they'll eat that first rather than fresh plants. They don't want to eat the fresh plants. The fresh plants taste bitter to them, essentially. They have terpenes and different chemicals in them that they actively put out to deter just that. I don't know. Of course, I've got two big ones and one small nearite in here that are beautiful. And of course, they don't want to come out for the show. I don't even know where they are right now. And this tank totally needs an overhaul. But my point was, you want to get to know what your options are as far as species go. And then you want to know what's going to be right for your tank. So hold on, let me catch up with chat, and then we'll kind of go through some more question-based stuff, because I feel like I've kind of shown you guys a couple ideas, and I like the fish that don't need heaters, they're not fast metabolizing fish, so they don't need filtration that's constantly flowing and constantly helping them out. They just sit. They're just peaceful. They're like shrimp. Shrimp don't poop enough that they make ammonia hardly at all. Hardly even registers. It's that time, ladies and gentlemen. All right. So I'm behind on the chat. Let me try to catch up on the chat real quick. If I see my name, I'm gonna stop. Oh, aquarium guys, we've got a $2 super chat. Are you still here? Are you still here, sir? But aquarium guys, podcast is up now. Aquarium stories. Fishymon64, we have another super chat. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Are those like bookshelf 2.5s? I have to pay $40 each. Here, fishy. These ones I got for $14.99 on sale at PetSmart. Yeah, PetSmart. The 2.5s downstairs. They're just normal 2.5s, but I put them end to end is what happened. Let's see here. Cream soda, Dr. Pepper. Yeah, Simple Jack. I agree. Morgan, thank you for being a cheerleader for the like button. Rob's Ray TV. There you are. Yeah, rip little fella. Thanks, guys. Yeah, actually, those jelly bean tetras, they're real touchy. I'm a little bummed, but I'm not that surprised. I knew it could happen. I still have 4 or 5, but I've never tried to breed them, and so the first step is to put them into the smaller tank with all the moss, and then to start lowering the pH. But it was too much of a shock, I think, for them. Peplin Creek says, "What if you stick the fish down in the substrate? Would that work like a root tab?" It will in a larger tank. You can put dead fish down, especially if you have a nice cap. If you push it way down there, it will break down. If you push it down below the oxygen barrier level, though, then you're going to get putrefaction from the oxygenation in the fish. Plus, the nutrients in the fish, the plants will seek it out, but it will have a rancid and gas, there'll be a gas exchange, and it'll liquefy in there over time. You're better off letting a fish rot in the water and having a ton of either biological filtration, mechanical filtration, and fish and snails and planaria and things like that that eat it bacteria wise, in a tank that's under, say, 20 gallons. If it's over than that, then yes, you could easily tuck it down in there. Let's see here. Alex, can you mix species of fry in the same tank when they're still small? Yes, definitely. I don't know that I would mix like Golden Wonder Killies, like you said exactly here, Fishy, with Endlers, just because they have kind of different profiles. But I mean, like a lot of Tetras of the same kind can stay together. Endlers and Tetras will be fine together. Corridoras and Endlers will be fine together because they're on different. If they're either the same and they hang out in the same area, it works. Or if they're so different that they hang out at the top and one hangs out at the bottom, a killifish and a catfish or something, then that usually works too. The main thing that you want to figure out is how you can feed them both without waste, and live food is a good answer for that usually. Is a 20-gallon long okay for a community Ember Tetra tank? Of course, yes. Plenty. You could probably put 30 to 40 Ember Tetras in a well-planted and deep substrate tank. You don't need a super deep substrate if you have a hang-off-the-back filter or a cartridge filter, and you've got plenty of filter floss. It's really about how much beneficial bacteria surface area you have. Beyond that, you can stabilize your tank in more ways. So just like we're getting a bit of filtration from wave motion or a pump in the tank, moving things around because things settle out, other things float to the filter. Just like you add a sponge on the pre-filter of the inflow to either a hang off the back or a canister filter. That's another area where you're getting beneficial bacteria. Or if you put an air stone in a sponge filter, then it's pulling more water, it's pushing more air, and so you're creating more turbulence, more flow, and ideally you would put some more that puts some more micro bubbles into your tank. Um, so yeah, let's see here. Hey Lee, how's it going? I'm probably late in recognizing your excellence as a human being, but I see you now. I know there are a lot of lives going on. Usually I go usually I go and stream around this time on Tuesdays, but maybe I'll switch that up. It used to be later, and then I had some East Coast folks saying, "Hey, can you go earlier?" But now I think other people are going. Jerry Morris, how's it going? MK on YT. How many gallons is this tank? Let's see here. Is this the tank you're asking about? This one here. This is with the canister sump that I have set up. It's kind of rigged underneath here too with a bigger than normal canister. This is a 46 gallon setup altogether. Um, and again, it's because it's in metric. You know, gotta love that. Uh, Erythromicrons will spawn in the upper 60s, right? Yeah, around 68 is usually where they start spawning. They do like a little warmer, but you know, feeding them live food, live baby brine shrimp, and giving them lots of spots to put their eggs. Because remember, they're egg scatterers. So you either want to, with little fish like that, you want to put glass marbles or beads. I'm actually ordering some tonight. Down at the bottom of the tank, and that way when they lay their eggs, it falls in between, you know, the cracks, and they can't pick at it and eat it. Because some of these fish, especially tetras, will literally go right for their egg. As they lay it, the male will go for it rather than fertilize it. There's a little Coryhebrosis. And these are full grown, and you can see that it's not even the size of a knuckle. So those ones are a great choice for a little catfish that will clean up any leftover food at the bottom. They eat kind of whatever is around, whatever's available. They're omnivores. They're detrivores. They're little raccoons of the aquarium. Uh, let's see here. Someone help me understand where all these snails came from. So if you have a lot of snails, it pretty much points to one thing, and that is too much food. You probably have too much food in your aquarium. And I know that that sounds crazy to some people. They think, I don't feed that much. I only put a little pinch in. Um, when you have an aquarium like this one, I could never feed these guppies again, and they would be healthy, happy, wealthy, and wise for the rest of their lives. Look at that. The little guy who had the clamped fins for a while, look at him now. He's torturing that poor female. That female clearly wanted to mate with Mr. Dumbo Ears with the big old dorsal tail and the beautiful blue. I guess you guys probably can't see the blue live very well. But she already picked her man, and now the rejects are bugging her. All right. But yeah, so you want to give them, for the erythromicrons, they're going to spawn in the morning. You're going to want to prime them with live food, protein. And then ideally you want to do a half, like 50% water change. So you'll let the water evaporate. You'll maybe keep it at 80 degrees or 78 degrees for 2 or 3 weeks. Then all of a sudden, you'll do a water change down to 72 or 68 degrees. Really drop that water temperature down with the 50% water change. That's going to drop the TDS. That's going to drop the temperature. That's going to increase the pressure. If you had let it evaporate down a bit, say you let it evaporate, 10% or something. And then that will signal the wet season. All these equatorial fish, those little tricks work really well. Of simulating, just think you're simulating a flash flood essentially. And what happens in a flash flood? Well, the temperature, the TDS, everything just changes very suddenly. And a lot of fish don't like that, but they do when they've been fed right, when they're not sick. when they're healthy and everything's good, it's a sign that they need to spawn. So see here, we've got a honey gourami here, and you see that blackening going on the belly. He is getting ready to spawn. So that's a sign that I know for him that, okay, he's getting ready to spawn. A big water change would probably help. He's already made his bubble nest with his little wife. His wife's back there, down below. And so any time now, I am going to be looking for them actually putting babies up in there, laying eggs, fertilizing them, and putting them up there. Same with cribs, you know, when they start coloring up and doing their dances and things, like the ones were in my tank the other night, then you know these ones are not colored up, even though they're albino. You can tell their bellies turn bright purple and pink. They fill with blood, and also they blush, and you can tell. Now with little fish, the best way to tell is going to be their bellies. So let's see here. Actually, we can hop down one more time to the erythromicrons and see if they're out. If they're out, we can take a look at their bellies, and I'll show you. You'll see when the females are ready. And when the females are ready, I mean, if you really want to ensure that you're getting a spawn, you can always, and I know this light's going to flash on and off. I need to take care of it. Sorry, guys. But their bellies are going to tell you. So let's just sit back for a minute. I'll keep reading your comments. Stop zooming in so far. So, Carol, thank you so much for the $2 super chat. I appreciate it. I appreciate you. Yes, I am the artist who painted the rhinos, by the way, that were upstairs. Yes. Chubbs is back. Alright, let's see here. So, looks like the erythromicrons are going to be shy tonight. They are a morning fish. You know, you got fish that are evening fish and morning fish, and then some that are around all day. The plecos tend to be a night fish. The catfish tend to be a night fish. Tetras are around all the time. Pseudomagills spawn in the morning. Rainbow fish spawn in the morning. Medacas spawn in the morning. These rice fish here, these are red cap rice fish. And shrimp are around 24/7. But we'll find a good example right here. So see how skinny this little tetra is? Sorry, it's a Rasbora with the stripe down its side. Look at this female. You can see the eggs in her belly. They're opaque. See the bottom of her belly? It's bulging with eggs. So she really needs to lay them. She's been too nervous to lay them with all the other critters in this tank, and she's waiting. At a certain point, she'll just lay them and say, forget it, I don't care if they survive. But compared to the other one in here that just did lay eggs, when I put them down in this tank, forget about it. That other one was so skinny, they actually look sunken in for a few days after they lay eggs. So hopefully in here, I'll be getting some of the eggs that they scattered in here. Now, same deal though, it would have been better to have beads in here, but instead I've got different size substrates, and their eggs are so teeny that they'll fall in between here kind of, and they should be okay. Now the panda loaches may eat some of the eggs, but usually erythromicrons and tetras, rasboras, things like that, they usually do an okay job of kind of finding like the bottom of a flower, or finding a tangle of algae and like putting an egg like this little egg right up in here. So they don't just, I mean, they do just scatter them somewhat, but there is a little bit of strategy to it. There's another egg right, oh no, it's not an egg now that I see it up close. It's some other little thing. But you'll find them usually in different areas around, closer to the bottom, but sometimes you'll find them stuck to things. It just depends on the species. I've got green algae on the aquarium glass, very difficult to remove. The magnet cleaner won't do the job. Neither of the algae eaters will. Yeah, Viking, I have a video on how to get rid of algae. If it's the hard algae, that's called diatom algae, like this stuff on the sides here. Um, one, I do want to ask why you want to get rid of it, because for me, I actually try to get it because these guys love it. The shrimp like the biofilms of it. These gobies, oh gosh, this light is driving me nuts. These gobies, that's all they eat is the algae and biofilm. So, and snails love it. But I would say that, I mean, if you really don't like it, really getting in there with some elbow grease and a straight razor blade, like for scraping gum off the floor that you get at a hardware store, that you usually do it. But you can also just kind of go in there with a nearite snail as a cleaner crew, and nearite snails will usually eat the algae off the sides. However, that being said, I mean they're not going to do a flawless job, and they're going to eat fish food if you give them, if there's leftover fish food. If there is food in the tank, they're going to eat whatever the processed food that was made for fish to like it is. Um, Rob's, what are you asking about? Super chat? Um, I saw your super chat. I talked about it. Hello, Isabel. How are you? Chalupa no tomatoes. I'm glad that you're here. Your name always makes me smile. Streetwise, yes. I don't know if I finished up that story. And hello, Randy Roman. But the other thing about the snails is their shells tell you a lot. So right now, I know that the TDS in this tank is really high because the snails look like little tanks, and these are pond snails here, and these are Malaysian trumpet snails here. This is what I was talking about. These will bury themselves in the sand until the evening, or substrate, whatever substrate you have, and then they're just MIA. You don't even see them in the day usually, but at night they come out and they'll bury all the way down to the very bottom. And Malaysian trumpet snails are another one that will eat this diatomaceous algae that's on the front here. But a razor blade is going to be your best bet. Just be careful. Get one that's got a little handle on it. Is my best advice. Biggie's support group, how's it going? Welcome. Yeah. Yeah, Lee, like Lee's saying, he purchased 4 nearite snails and 4 dwarf bristlenose plecos. He's shocked what they've accomplished in a month. And yeah, because the plecos are going to be eating anything that's on the ground, whether that's dead plants, leaves, whatever, if you don't feed them. If you feed them, game over, they're going to wait for food for 2 or 3 days. That's how good your food is. But if you don't feed them, I skip feedings very frequently. I mean, I go for days where things don't get food. Then the fish are going to forage. They're going to look for little algae. They're going to look for little rotifers and seed shrimp. And this is I've never had to clean this tank. This tank, the glass. This tank just has enough shrimp that the algae never built up. Granted, it's also got the gobies, and the gobies, oh, now we've got 2 females you can see that are this light. So I need to buy a new light. It's just this light is an expensive one. I mean, relatively, it's going to be $150. So I just didn't want to shell that out until I had to. But little plecos, these guys in this tank, they're going to eat. I mean, you see all this mulm, and it looks like there's eggs from other snails there. That's from the ram's horn snails. Those little clear slicks with the little dots in them. And here you've got poop from snails. Snails actually produce a fair amount of poop and junk. And they'll eat it again and kind of break it down again. But the fish will also kind of sort through it, sift through it, and see if they can find anything nutritious left over. So in this tank, we've basically got an entire tank. See, he's cleaning this snail up here. We've got a whole tank of critters that are just bound to clean. They're just made for cleaning. each other, basically. We've got the Algae Shrimp over there from Aquatic Arts. I think they're the only ones I know in the country selling them. The short-nosed algae-eating shrimp. But see, when I lift this, there's actually a lot of mulm and stuff in here. And the fish and shrimp will keep going through this. This protein, these snail eggs, some snail eggs, yeah, are poisonous or they have bad taste. Not most of them in our hobby, but in the wild, I'm saying. And so there are some things that fish avoid. But just having leaves breaking down in your tank, dry leaves, catappa leaves, the almond leaves, and then having moss and things like that, you're going to have areas where all these different critters can graze. And then if these critters are doing well enough, like I showed you over here, this tank here, these rams, or these apistos, I keep calling them rams, they're eating shrimp because I have so many shrimp that literally they breed faster than they can be eaten. That's how many I've gotten to the point in here. So part of this is definitely if you want a tank that you barely need to feed, like this one in this case, and you want your fish to have live food, the shrimp, I mean, look at the glass. They keep it so clean. There still is some algae back there, very light. So it's not that it's not in the water. It's in there. But you want to see how much food I put in this whole tank. So right now we've got all these little endlers in here. We've got 4 Kohaku platies. We've got probably close to 200 shrimp, I would probably guess, when you really start counting them and looking at all the little nooks and crannies where they are, with the babies too. And these are Malawa shrimp. And then we've got the apistos. And then we've got a couple baby plecos in this one too. This is how much I feed them every other day. Just like that. For some reason, this net has a shrimp in it. It was just sitting here, one of the million shrimps. And up top, floating plants are another saving grace for a small tank. Especially if you got a light over them, even just a desk lamp, you're going to be able to suck the nitrates, ammonia, nitrites out of there. Since when we talked about small water volume isn't as forgiving, that's another help. So here's another way to do it. This is a glass bottom tank, and you could pretend this is a small tank. This is what a lot of breeders do. And what they're doing is they have a filter media canister or sponge filter or whatnot that's cycled with an air line going through it. They've got the heater, and then if it were cranked up higher, it would be pushing more water out and creating more flow. However, I want duckweed growing in here because this tank is full of snails, which I feed to other fish like my cribs, and you can see here all the algae that's growing. So we actually have a tangled environment. Nothing is rooted. It's all just hornwort and sawassertang and algae. But it's a great little nursery for the baby fish. And beyond that, when we look under the microscope, which I ordered contrast dye, so we'll be getting that. I needed some anyways for some other projects. We'll be able to see all the little critters that they're eating. Because believe it or not, even if you never put them in there on purpose, there are millions of little critters that find their way in there. Everything from little things the size of sea monkeys to super microscopic single cell, bacteria that they're grazing on. So for instance, in this tank without the filter, you see the haziness? That's actually dead bacteria, most likely. They've got the deep substrate, so they're probably fine. Everybody looks active, healthy, happy. No one's got ick or anything. Even the pandagar is all colored up. But it's like a lake. It's a little murky. There's silt at the bottom. This tank, yet again, there are a bajillion little shrimp in here. They eat the shrimp. I don't know if you can see them all. But there are just shrimp everywhere in this tank. And I had to get to this point. You don't want to just set up a tank without a filter and say, okay, I'm good. what you want to do is you want to set up a deep substrate, put a couple fish in, some Danios or some Guppies or something kind of hardy, and then plant it thoroughly. Let it cycle. Let the plants grow. See, I've even got these are known to be really delicate fish. Actually, these orange nose Rasboras, the rummy nose Rasboras, and they're doing fine. The chili Rasboras are doing fine. And of course, Danios are doing fine. They're hardy as all can be. But so are the Lake Shanensis from the Shan region of Myanmar. They're doing fine. The Pantheri Danios are doing fine, and the Tinwini Danios are doing fine. There's a bunch of Danios in here, clearly. And I started with Danios because I wanted to see what the tank could handle. Danios tend to be able to take a little less of moving water, a little less oxygen. They can take colder water, they can take hotter water. They're just well adapted to being in a puddle and waiting for the season to kind of rain again and life to return. Same with bettas and some gouramis, licorice fish, which are a type of gourami, essentially. They have an organ called a labyrinth organ, and they can come to the surface and breathe air. So that really helps them. And they're a good first round, as well as cyprinids. So cyprinids are little minnows, and, rice fish would count. CPDs, celestial pearl danios, that is, and the emerald dwarf rasboras, that they would all count as good ideas to kind of test out whether you can go filterless. But what I did was I slowly turned back the filtration. It actually got clogged, and I just let it stay off. Like, whatever, like I said, 9 months ago. Actually, it's been since the lockdown, so yeah, it's been since March. But Pandagara, I forgot he was in here because he wasn't getting along with the colony. I have a colony of 6 of these guys over in the other tank, but he wasn't getting along. Now, I haven't trimmed anything in here either. I'm letting everything grow really wild, and there is floating plants, and there is a twin star light. Now, the twin star light puts out a lot of light, and that's another secret to this, because you have to be putting something into the ecosystem for things to eat. It's just like if we eat a cow, how much energy are we getting from the cow, and how much energy did the cow get from the grass, and how much energy did the grass get from the sun? Each step, you're kind of losing a bunch of energy. So the more predatory, larger fish you have, the more you're going to need to input actual food into the system that we think of as food. Whereas these kinds of fish, they're able to survive off of the baby shrimp, some of the baby guppies, some of the duckweed, some of the moss, all the little copepods, seed shrimp, the planaria that gather when something dies, the hydra that, in most cases people would say, oh, I need to kill them. There's a reason why all these things appear in an ecosystem. If you give it enough time, your tank will tell you who's going to survive. And sometimes things die, and that is a bummer. But in the course of keeping fish, it is another thing that we just need to learn sometimes. And if you're not patient, / just learn from observing other people, you'll have to learn it yourself and figure out what fish can survive in what conditions. Let's see here. Jamie Lee said she was back. All right, let's see here. Alex, if you know the source of the stream, do you have a preference for pond water or stream water adding a tank? I do prefer stream water, but the slow part. The stream part that is slow, like the back water areas where there's little eddies and little channels where they are, that's where I would go, where there's like some little whirlpools and areas where the current is pulling lots of things in. Right there, if there's a calm riverbank that's just kind of muddy, that's where I would go to select things, because you're gonna get lots of life washed out there, but you're also gonna get all the dead things and plant material and stuff that was washed into there will be collecting, and critters will be eating it. So you'll have the micro critters there also. So that's what I recommend usually, is that. But I also think any lake, as long as it's not literally, a stinky, if it smells terrible like a cesspool of sewage, don't deal with that. That's no good. Yeah, don't deal with that. Wow, Lee, that's very moving, and I feel like this stream, I feel like I've jumped around, and I'm sorry for that. I should do a more streamlined for actual, like, real beginners, because I've hopped around a lot, and I just saw your comment that said, I have learned more in the past 9 months with Alex and Father Fish than I have in the past 15 years. And so that really means a lot to me. I mean, thank you, because I hope I'm helping. I hope I'm here to help folks, and that you guys are here to help each other. We're all here to learn. Yeah. But if your tanks are happy and healthy, Lee, then that's good to know. The other thing to know is, I've got 16 tanks and 300 and some fish probably at a given time. You saw tonight I lost 2 fish. It's pretty normal on a given day to every few days lose a fish or 2. That's normal when you have a fish room running and a bunch of tanks and you're moving things around. If I just let them be, less would die, but I'd also wouldn't be spawning so many fish. If you count fry and shrimp, I mean, I've got 500 to 1,000 little critters easily. Millions and Suns, I see you said, so should I leave green string algae clusters in my tank with CPDs and emerald dwarf Rasboras to hedge my bets for eggs reaching hatch day? Yeah, I mean, I think algae's good. If you can stand the side of it, get it off the front glass. I understand that. But even old rocks that have, something on them. So like right here, these rocks have a little bit of diatom algae. Up here you can see there's blackbeard algae. I'm not sweating it because most of the tank is balanced. Most of the tank has, there's probably 5 kinds of algae in this tank. There's a little bit of diatom algae if we look around on the edges here. See it? Yeah, a little bit. If you become a neat freak with your tanks, you're going to have a bad time. Now, when it starts to colonize big chunks of plants that you're trying to grow, the problem with this tank is that the CO2, I had it on, it ran out. I had it on, it ran out. There's something wrong with the little rubber gasket on the actual CO2 container down here. And so the blackbeard has been able to kind of move in while the other algae and other good bacterias and things have died off, and the plants have not been using the nutrients to their full capacity. So that's kind of how algae, you want to think of it, as see, oh, more black algae here, but this is dead. This is broken off and dead. Yet again, another thing that's broken off and just floating. So there's a difference between algae that's making a concerted effort to colonize your tank and algae that has a spot in the ecosystem, even if it's only a 40-gallon ecosystem. Granted, though, in a 10-gallon, in a 20-gallon, you're going to end up, it can take over the whole tank very quickly. So that is one of the challenges, and that's why so many people think they're doing something good by peep slot sheep. Yes, I totally agree. Way to do it. Brother Man Anderson, welcome. Misfit Reptiles, good to see you, of course. But in any case, yeah, so I mean, you're going to have to deal with some variable, and it's up to you to decide what those variables are. And when you have a deep substrate when you take the time to let it cycle, when you go get live cultures from either someone who's had a tank up and running for 2 or 3 years and get some of their water, or better yet than their water. Their water will have bacteria, fungi, slime molds, things like that in there. But I don't know if you guys just saw that. That crib was just munching on this blackbeard algae because it's bored. I haven't fed it yet today. If I fed them every time everybody in this tank was hungry, I'd have algae everywhere. But don't give in. See, now he's eating whatever off the bottom. So fish are designed to be little foragers. They're not designed to be delivered little flakes with perfect nutrients every day. Unless you're raising shellfish or something. Really, you're going to foul the water. That's the main thing. Yeah. Let's see. I just wanted to catch up. And about the rhino painting that you were inquiring, I do have a website, which is my Instagram, which is just instagram.com/Alexander, J as in jet, Alexander J. Williamson, no spaces or anything, and then /. You'll find my art there. I've got a lot of different kinds of art that I've done. Here's like a ram skull that we found at a swap meet after I painted this, and it's a specific Corsican ram skull that I found a photo of that I painted, and my wife found it. Even though you're not supposed to buy and sell them anymore, it was an antique and we were able to buy it. Here's one of the North Cascades, which if you saw my video on how do fish get to remote lakes, it may look familiar to you guys now, where that was painted 10 years ago. This Okavango Delta, the map of it is the watering holes that dry out completely. And like those are the depth, the topographic markings. And then this is a desert giraffe. With some embellishments, obviously. But yeah, and I used to sell prints and things. I haven't been doing a whole lot. Randy, I appreciate your kind words also. I have worked with purple Harlequin Rasboras, misfits. They are very, very fidgety in that you'll see them, their bellies are hard to tell. You think they're going to swell up. My biggest advice for them is follow the same protocol as Mark's Mark's shrimp tanks. He has a great video on how to spawn blue neon tetras. Sorry guys. And that video will tell you like the most you would have to do to breed something. And if you follow that protocol, and on top of that, you separate the males and the females for 2 weeks before spawning, if you can, or take a guess, take a gander. That's when we do things as breeders that a lot of people think are cool if they were to stop in. That's when you can change the water every day. You might need to do it twice a day. And you're changing water. But yes, you're keeping a Harlequin Rasbora in here and another one here, and you've got cardboard in between, and maybe a little aerator and a catappa leaf. And that's all that would be in there. But you're doing that so that you can wait and see if it fattens up. And then you're feeding it live baby brine shrimp. It's called the Hobby Brine Shrimp Hatchery, the one I use. And it's really easy. I just talked to Brine Shrimp Direct, and they came out with a bunch of new products. And I asked if I could buy a couple things, if they'd send me some free samples to show you guys. And they didn't reach out to me as an ad. They're not paying me or anything. But they have a bunch of new products that are in their catalog. And so we'll go through that hopefully in the beginning of December. They're supposed to send me some of their baby fish, like for breeding, what they send the same people in Florida. Viking Dogmanship, thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate it, buddy. Appreciate that for Norway, yeah? Thank you very much. One dirty platy, hey, dirty. Baby, I got your platy, don't you worry. Said, hey. Alright, guys, let's see here. Aqua Balls, George, what's going on? I just moved some Rainbow Fry to a 5-gallon sponge filter. Yeah, if you search sponge filter, you can really find some cheap deals on little sponge filters, the little black ones where there's 1, 2, and then there's a power head in the center, which means a power head just means water gets directed. Is hypochlorous acid safe to use? I don't know about that, Javi. I know carbonic acid is okay. I know ethanol and bleach or ammonia will evaporate off, but I'd be careful. Yeah. Misfits Reptiles and Aquatics. Oh, $10 super chat. Thank you so much also. I really, really appreciate it. Purple Harlequin Rasboras. What can you tell me about their breeding habits? Yeah, so the breeding habits, I'll go into a little more detail here too. They like low pH water. You can spawn them in neutral acidity water. I've seen it done. It just takes some acclimating and, like them being 2 years old and really being used to the water and you keeping the water consistent. The best thing for spawning fish is you keep the water consistent for, say, a month or 2 months. You feed them good live baby brine food or vinegar eels or welter worms or Walter worms or micro worms, glass worms, whatever you want to call your little rotifers and nematodes. You can feed them those. That's going to help get their instinct into shape. That's going to get their protein up. Then separating them, that's really going to help get their drive. Just like distance makes the heart grow fonder, right? So that helps. Lowering the pH slowly on them, if you do colony breed, doing that. And the other thing is, like I said, get some glass beads, some glass marbles, cover the entire bottom of your tank with it. Then put some moss above that maybe to kind of disguise it. But their eggs aren't sticky. Rasboras, most Rasboras. Some are, but most aren't. And so they'll fall to the bottom. And as long as they can't pick at them, they'll stay at the bottom. So now the trick is, if you put glass marbles in there, a catappa leaf, or maybe 2 catappa leaves, you've fed them up for, say, 2 weeks, or a month you've been keeping them well, and then you separated them all, or into fry pens, or into jars, or whatever you want to do. You don't need to separate them. I would, that's kind of the most drastic step on the hardest ones to do. I had to do that with the Phoenix Rasboras and the Chili Rasboras, for instance. But really what it's going to be is triggering that fake rainfall. So they've got this consistent, at least a month or two consistency. And then you're bringing their acidity and their TDS down. You've even let the water pressure reduce. So they know their puddle's getting smaller. They know that the southeastern Asian jungle, their rice paddy is evaporating. August is setting in. They need to reproduce. They need to get their babies out into other ponds and streams, and they're waiting for that monsoon. And so when the monsoon comes, everything drops from 120 degrees outside to, whatever, 38 Celsius, whatever it is, to down to a good 3 degrees Celsius drop in the water, or say 10, or I don't know, 8 to 12. We'll give it a big range, but different people play with different things. I would go to seriouslyfish.com. They're going to help you out with more details too. Yes, Morgan Cook. Yeah, I painted them all. Yep. Yes, I know that Mary Page is a great artist. I have seen some of her work. She is a very good artist. She's supposed to help me host a show once I get some things figured out. Yeah, Jamie Lee, has anyone had experience with Hygrophila pinnatifada? Yeah, it was downstairs when we were looking at it in a couple tanks. It was in both the cold water tank because I wasn't sure how it would do. It's right here. That's it right there. I've trimmed it all recently because I was clearing it out of my tanks and selling it, but I have more back in here too. But Hygro pinnatifada, it does best with a ADA, Amazonia, or Eco Complete, some sort of active substrate with nitrites in it. Nitrates. Root tabs help too. It is grown submerged. It's not really a totally underwater aquatic plant for its whole life cycle usually. It really grows half in the water, half out, and it grows this tall to as tall as this most of the time. That being said, it can get super tall, can get super leggy, but it likes decent light. It doesn't need high light, but medium to high light, and it likes minerality in the soil. A root tab would work if you don't want to use the substrates, but the substrates really do help because they have a pretty fine root column. The other thing is if your water gets too hard, they don't like it. The pH gets too high, I should say. They start to rot on their stem if that happens. But if it gets too soft, likewise, you kind of want to be in the sweet spot between 6.5 and 7.5 is kind of what I've noticed with it. And then trimming it really does help. It really does help. Yes, Mark's Aquatic. Sorry, Pepperland Creek. It's Mark's Shrimps. No, it's Mark's Aquatics. Maybe he's the one in Scotland. I know there's like 5 Mark's Shrimp, Mark's Fish, Mark's Aquariums, Mark Aquatic, but I'm talking about Mark, who's in the UK. Johanna Jean Francois. I have 18 CPDs in my quarantine and they're ready to go to the community tank. I think I've done my homework for the parameters, tank mates, but I don't know what to expect from their behavior. Any advice? Yes, I would say that for their behavior, it helps to have some. Oh, you've got a list here too of what's in there. Borneo loaches, that's fine. Coolie loaches, that's fine. Guppies. So the guppies may scare them a little bit at first, but they're actually good. It's good to have guppies or rasboras, something like that, up above them. In the wild, they're going to have the axolrotti blue rasboras. They're going to have gouramis, things like that. Gouramis will attack them in the wild too. And they're going to have zebra danios. They're going to have batis. They're going to have all sorts of little critters swimming around them. CPDs are a shoaling fish, so they don't school really tight, but they pay attention to each other. They see, well, okay, what's my buddy doing? And if they see that there's a fish above them, they're a little on edge. But if it's a fish that's not going to attack them, so like a guppy won't attack them, a rasbora won't attack them, a tetra won't attack them, they're going to just get used to it, and they're going to count on those shadows and that movement to make them feel comfortable. The more hiding spots you provide them in the back of dense, and when I say dense, I mean like this, spots to hide, they may hide for a while, but the more hiding spots they have, the more likely they are to come out into the open. You can kind of train them too by giving them brine shrimp in a turkey baster or something, live brine shrimp, or vinegar eels, or whatever it is you want to feed them out in the open. Make them come for it, and then feed the guppies or the more aggressive fish up off to the side so that they're out of the way. Not a problem to the CPDs, but they're a very gentle fish. They never hurt anything other than newborn shrimp. They might take a little chomp at if they're sitting there and one swims right by them, but they're very good. Yes, Amazon has really cheap sponge filters. Like I think it's $15 for 4 or 6. At one point it was $20 for $40 of these spongy AquaNeat, I think they're called. But those will work for 10 gallons and less. Let's see here. Maximum number of fish in a 50-liter tank. How many different types of fish? You can put as many different types of fish as you want. It just really depends on how they get along. For a 50-liter, I would say, I would say that you probably want to get, hmm, um, I don't like the rule of an inch per gallon. I know that a lot of people go by that. Um, I know that a lot of people go by that, and I don't like that. I don't think it makes sense. I think it's more by the cubic um, centimeter or cubic, more by volume, honestly, like density, volume, weight, something like that. Because, an inch long gourami is this fat, thick thing, or an angelfish, whereas an inch of CPD or chili rasbora it makes no wastewater. And that's really what we're talking about is wastewater and aggression. So, um, those are the things you want to keep in mind. You can look up biotopes and see what biotopes there are of nano fish that get along together. That should be a series I've thought about doing where maybe we'll do like a Southeast Asian or a Lake Inle or a Pantanal or northern Brazilian rainforest, Brazilian ponds versus streams, and we can go over some of that as far as um, what fish go with what fish. Now, some of the fish that go with each other eat each other too, but yeah, for the most part, it's okay. But I would say in a 50, um, I would probably put, hmm, if they're super nano rasboras, you could probably put 20 to 25 in there, honestly, if it's planted. You want fast growing plants with a good light if you're going to do that because they need to be able to process that waste and you want a deep substrate or at least a layered substrate of active substrate, not just gravel. Because gravel is just poop. It just poop sits there, falls in between. Eventually bacteria grows over it, but you still just got an open pile of poop sitting there. The sponge filters from Aquarium Co-op are fine. Yeah, it just depends on what you like. If you have super teeny nanofish, some of them they're a little coarse for my taste, and same with for teeny tiny shrimp. Sometimes they get sucked in, and usually they can get out, but just be aware that that's another issue. I saw someone, and also Carolyn, thank you so much again for the super chat. I really appreciate that. What a sweetheart. Um, but yeah, so let's see here. From what little information I've read, I thought they place their eggs on the bottom side of a leaf, like the other Harlequin. You mean like the lamb chop rasboras and stuff? Um, I could be. Hold on, let me double check that. Purple. I didn't know if. Um, you are right. Okay, the purple ones do. Sorry, I'm wrong. I forgot that. Yeah, so they hatch within 18 hours too. So they're going to be then the thing that you would do different then is you just want to put a ton of moss and a ton of you could put Anubias in there, plants that you can remove easily. And if that's the case, that actually makes your job easier. Just make sure there's no snails and then put them in a tank that's got some catalpa leaves. Don't worry about the bottom. You can even leave it glass. Put it in a little 2-gallon tank with an aerate with a sponge filter, or even just an air stone. Put them some live food in there, some baby brine shrimp at night, or first thing in the morning. They'll lay their eggs on the underside of a leaf, and then what you'll do is you'll either catch them and just leave the plants alone, and babies will hatch, but they're so teeny. Or you will pull the plants, leave the parents there, or you can do either or, the reverse of that or that. They will predate their babies, if I recall. I think they do. But yes, you're right. I was wrong. They are one of the sticky ones. Um, they're one of the oddballs. Um, Alex, are tetras also non-sticky egg scatters? Yeah, the tetras don't usually. That's not true. I mean, there's like the splash tetra that throws its eggs out of the water and they're sticky and they stay on a leaf, but it's an exception. Um, but most scatter. Most rasboras, most little fish in general, they scatter and the male follows behind and fertilizes. Can I use regular beach sand if I cook it before I put it in the aquarium? You can. If it's saltwater sand, just be careful. I would recommend cooking it. If it's not, you don't necessarily need to cook it. There could be some nasty bacteria, but more likely there won't be, more likely than not, especially if your tank's already established. If it's a brand new tank, then yeah, go ahead and either pour some boiling water over it and just sterilize it if it's a quartz sand or something. Oh, Pinitafida, yes. Uh, hello, Mutta, hello, Fada. Pinitafada, it's just a habit. Sorry. Latin, don't pronounce it everything right. Um, let's see here. Um, Oh, girls are watching the show. That's cool. Daughter do Crayola abstract. Y'all should have a scribble contest. Yes, this painting took longer than all the other ones. Don't ask. It also sold this series also sold the most of any series I have. In Seattle, I sold some to some Microsoft people, some big ones. Alex, I just picked up Pogostemon Decanensis and a mini Pelia. If you think they'll do all right in low-tech highlight indoor pond. Yes, the Pogostemon should be fine. And the Pelia should be okay, but it's a surface. It likes transitional zones, Jerry. So I would recommend putting it, if you have a stick or any stones coming out of the water, I'd recommend kind of putting it right near there. It likes to graft onto that and then spread from that point. Same with like filter pipes going in and out. Yeah, it'll live just floating around too, but sometimes some of it melts off, burns off, dies off, and so my recommendation is to kind of put it right at the water's edge. Um, what, honey? Oh, sorry, my wife's biking on her stationary bike. Smoky. All right, let's see here. How many garamis in a 50 liter? Dr. Smokey, thank you for the compliment on the stream. Yeah, in a 50 liter, I would say you could do maybe five, maybe like 3 female and 2 male honey gouramis, or even 4 female, 1 male honey gouramis. You could do 2 or 3 blue powder female dwarf blue powder gouramis. You could do maybe 1 opaline gourami. Gouramis get pretty big for a 50 liter. But any licorice gourami you could do. There's like 100 species, and they look very similar to bettas. There's also a lot of betta species. A lot of them are mouth breeders or bubble nesters, and so I would recommend, yeah, checking any of those out. But I would just say with the bulk of, say it's a betta size fish. It's not a teeny microfish, but it's not a huge fish. I would say you don't want to put more. You could do a sorority of bettas. You could do 4 or 5 females in there. They'd probably be okay. 3 is probably more ideal for space, but I'm one who tends to really load up on fish. Let's see here. Yeah, you bought John Larson bought a fine sponge filter on Amazon. Yeah, it just depends on what you're looking for. If you want one that's not going to clog up very much, my problem is that sometimes with the bigger, coarser ones, things get in there that are really fine, and then like it just takes one leaf to get sucked in, and it's like the soggy, like rotten leaf, and then it gets stuck in, and then more stuff like mulm piles over it, and all of a sudden that's not surface area. It's not that tangle of surface area. It's a blocked off channel. So when you have really fine stuff, yes, a leaf can come on it, but cleaning it, I can just flick it off with my finger or, a scraping tool or whatever, a turkey baster. I can just wipe it off real quick and no big deal. So, yeah. Let's see here. Yeah, Javi says I only remove algae from the front of my tanks. Good call. How can I change my external filter from salt water to fresh water using the same media? You can't do that as far as I know. I could be wrong, but I've never done that. No, salmon eggs, I've hatched trout eggs, but I've never done salmon eggs. We did it in school as an experiment, but we needed, it was already after they'd spawned, so we weren't really spawning them. We just had these eggs that were already, like, they looked like fish. So really it was just tricking us into the last stage and letting them hatch. But I've never actually, they get covered in silt, and where to get fertilized salmon eggs? No, because salmon eggs, I mean, salmon get 70, 80 pounds, get 100 and, I mean, depending on the species, they get anywhere from 30 to probably 200 pounds. What's a king salmon get to now? I don't know what's out there still. I mean, realistically, you usually catch 30, 40 pound kings around here. Yeah, all right. So 126 pounds is the current record for in the lower US for a salmon. So they get big and they need very cold water. So you need a chiller, not just you can't have 55. I mean 55 is probably the top. You can't have 70-degree water. You can't have 60-degree water ideally. You really need to have 45, 35 to 55-degree water. And an insane amount of aeration. An insane amount. Otherwise, they don't have the energy for their spawning, and they just give up and die. They know when they don't have enough energy. Is there an easy way to sex pandagar? Not that I know of, unfortunately. Sometimes if they're real swollen with eggs, you can tell, but that's only if you kind of keep an eye on them. Perfect, Jerry. That's awesome. Oh, no worries, Carolyn. Thank you so much for joining. I'm just happy that you're learning, that we're learning. I learned something new. I mean, I can't always remember everything I've done. I've spawned over 100 fish just to get the Grandmaster spawner thing. the Grandmaster fish keeper, fish breeder, and horticulturalist. Sorry. I'm saying and way too much. Rummy knows Tetras in a 20 gallon? Yeah, sure. I do a 20 long just because they like to swim and they school so well. They're one of the best schooling fish in the world. Reed Tetras are another one that you may not expect them to be as, they're not quite as cool. But these little guys, they max out at less than an inch. They've got a cool little iridescent pattern. They're called reed tetras, and they will school with ember tetras. They'll school with Habrosus corridoras, and also glow light tetras. They get a little bigger, but I mean, see how tight this area is? There's even more. There's two schools right now, the way they've separated. But I've got over 25 of these in here. And if you tap on the glass, they all jolt and go together. Plus, they've got kind of a cool little white fin underneath, the males do. I recommend reed tetras if you want to cram way more. See how tightly they school? Another trick to getting them to school is just having a fish in there like an algae eater, like a crebensis, like even I mean, the angels in a 20 would eat them. They would be very mean to them. But I love these fish because they school like a rummy-nosed Rasbora. They've got these beautiful blue eyes, but they don't need the space, and they don't create the ammonia profile of them. So that's what I like about those. Lee, I will tell my wife. Recently got Bacopa caroliniana, or Carolina. Most of the leaves melted. Will it be able to recover? Most likely. Well, do you have hard or soft water, Yeti? If it's, I'm guessing you have soft water, maybe? Because I've got some right here. I have softish water, but I have a nice mineral-based substrate. It does not like to be in gravel. It really likes to feed from the roots, and it does like light. It will grow without light. Here's some colorata here, which gets like a bronze color on it. But it will get leggy. But my guess is you probably bought it, and it was from somewhere like Aquarium Co-op or Dustin's Fish Tanks or Florida Aquatic Nurseries or one of your local aquarium shops. And frequently, you know, when they get it in, it's in immersed form. And this is one that they grow majorly immersed, which means, you know, just the very bottom is in the water and in soil. And then they ship it to you, and it's never been underwater. And so the leaves melt off. So as long as the roots take hold in the substrate, it should come back, and it'll start growing from the crown. So sometimes what I'll do to hedge my bets is if the leaves fall off here, I'll cut it up here. So, and I'll take this piece and replant it, and then this piece is cut. And if it's tall enough, like this one, I could get away with doing this 3 times. So I'd cut it here and cut it here, and that would give me 3 chances at it. Same with Kabamba. This Kabamba is getting really leggy. This Kabamba needed more potassium. That's what happened there. But like, and CO2. It could have used CO2 very much so. Yeah, Sam, we can get salmon eggs here, but it's not legal. Totally, they're protected. All 5 salmon species we have in Washington are. Hat Trick, how's it going? How are you, Joey? Oh, you want to raise salmon eggs so you can release them. That could be a big ecological issue. You definitely want to check on that. But if it's something you want to do and you're allowed to do it, the hatchery may allow you to raise some fingerlings. But usually for them to be raised, they really need to be in like a circular tub with a nice jet of water, unless you're literally hatching them, just hatching them, nothing else. Hard water. Yeah, okay, so you've got hard water rather than soft water. So it's probably just that they were immersed then, unless it's so hard that it actually caused it to melt. If your TDS is over like 400 and your pH is over 8, then it could be that. You may want to try adding some almond leaves, or maybe some distilled water or RO water, rainwater. But I've seen it growing in Florida, so I would say that if you have a substrate like Fluval stratum, it's pretty close to neutral, but that's going to be around 7, so that's going to be lower than your hard water, and so that will help the roots. Plants like slightly acidic water generally. Not all plants, but a lot do. Really acidic, and they hate it. Really minerally, they hate it. But yeah. Well, Joey, my twins watched Fish Until They Crashed. I still haven't moved, enjoying and watching snuggles and watching. Well, that is adorable. Good. Well, do we have any more questions? We've hit the 2-hour witching mark, and I don't want to run into Bentley and other people's streams. Maybe we'll do a later stream next week. That's been a critique I've heard several times now. So, boy, I looked crazy right there, huh? Full light on me doesn't it's not too flattering. It looks like I'm a crazy homeless person. But in any case, I hope everybody's having a good night. We talked about small tanks a bit, kind of showed you a couple options. I feel like I talked about some of the pitfalls. I definitely could have covered it a little bit better, but I hope that, hey, Super Cartridge Kid, and thank you, mods, thank you so much, Muppet, Chevy, all you guys, thank you so much for all that you do. Rigel, you're back. Good to see you. And also, thank you everybody for chatting, for your questions, and for making this live stream fun. And of course, thank you channel members, super chatters, and everyone in between, including the lurkers. You guys rock. And be a lurker if you don't want to be. If you have something to say, if you know how to do something and you see someone talking about it in the chat, please tell us. It's just, that's how we learn. I'm here to learn too. Every day you're going to learn something new. So I really, I really believe that I'm here to learn from you guys. Just as much as you are to learn from me too. If I hear someone has a problem and I have to think it through, it's one less time that I don't have to mess it up myself. I mean, I don't hide when I mess something up. You guys have seen when tanks crash. That's kind of what I do. If you've seen how my shrimp tank crashed recently, I uploaded it right when it happened, and I told you what my thought process was, how we ended up saving the shrimp that were left. So that's how I hope to do things, is kind of a diary. There's not really much production value here at times, but I hope that there's authenticity and that you guys are having a good time and that we are building a community, respecting each other. There's not one way to do things. There's not one way to do nano tanks. Pick your fish carefully, and I really recommend learning about the nitrogen cycle, about both aerobic, which means oxygenated bacterial processing of nitrates and ammonia and nitrogen, and anaerobic or anoxic. PECTech, his channel, Sean's channel over on PECTech, he's in Kentucky or Tennessee. I can't ever remember, but I think he's in Louisville. But in any case, he did a great video with Dr. Novak, who talks about how the substrate acts as a filter even in where there's no oxygen, which if you listen to people recently, that hasn't been discussed a lot. That's a Walstead method thing. So yeah, the Walstead method, another thing to read up on. And of course, I will be back with a video probably midweek. I've got a couple I've been working on. And I will be back with a live stream on Saturday, and maybe Thursday we'll read through another old magazine for you hardcore nerd fishy folks out there, wherever you may be. Thank you so much, Mridgel. There's the PECTech video. Really appreciate it. 7.4, and they were melted when they arrived. Perfect. They should regrow. Give plants what they crave. Just give them good light, and they should give them a month or two. Don't move them multiple times. Don't do that. Just let them chill. So yeah, all right, guys. Have a wonderful night. Thanks again. Thank you, super chatters. Thank you, channel members. It means a lot to me. Let me know if I can improve the channel. In any ways that you feel like would help, would make it more worth it for you if you're feeling like you need a little more bang for your buck. But I'm trying and I'm learning as we go. I need to come up with some symbols for the little channel member badges and stuff. All right, guys, have a good night. Thank you again, mods and friends. Wee Wilcox, good to see you. Take care, guys. Bye.